Hello everyone! In this lesson, we will learn how to make our page banner area dynamic. Now when I say page banner area, what am I referring to? Well, if I click on About Us up in the navigation, I'm referring to this area that I'm highlighting right now. So the title text is dynamic, but this subtitle text still is static. And perhaps most importantly, I also want to make the background image or photograph dynamic. So that way each page or post can have its own unique background up here. Now you might be thinking to yourself, hey, we learned about the featured image in our previous lessons, so maybe we can use the featured image to allow authors to upload a background photo. And that would indeed work for a generic blog post or page like this, but it wouldn't work for everything, right? For example, that strategy would not work with our professor post type. Because if I go to a professor detail screen, so maybe Dr. Barks a Lot, in WordPress, a post can only have one single featured image. So if we've already used up our featured image on the portrait of the professor, we're going to need to utilize a different feature in order to let authors upload a page banner background photo. So what we're going to do is create a new custom field that will allow users to upload a file, right? Or upload a photograph. Just like we will create a custom field that will let users input a custom subtitle. So without further ado, let's go and create those custom fields right now. So over in the admin dashboard, towards the bottom of the sidebar, let's click on Custom Fields. Let's go ahead and create a new field group, Add New. Let's name this field group Page Banner, and we want this group to contain two fields. One field for the subtitle and another field for the image. So let's add the first field. Let's name it Page Banner Subtitle. Okay, for the field type, we can go ahead and leave that set to the default of text. We just want a plain text input. Let's scroll down. And let's go ahead and add another field for our image. So add field. Let's name it Page Banner Background Image. Okay, and let's be sure to adjust the field type. So instead of text, let's set this to image. You'll see the image lives under a subsection named content. Okay, image. And all of the other options are okay to leave as the default. So let's scroll down a bit. We don't need to create any additional fields, but I do want to focus our attention on this location box. So in the past, we've limited our custom fields to only display on certain post types. But when it comes to page banner, we want that on every single post type that we have. Right? We want it on blog posts and pages and events and programs and professors. Now you'll notice that there is not an all option. But what we can do is leave this rule in place, show it only if post type is equal to post, and then we can click this or button to add an or rule and say or if post type is not equal to post. And it's a bit unintuitive, but if you stop and think about it, one of these will always be true. Okay, so that way this page banner field group will always display no matter what. So let's scroll up to the top and go ahead and publish or save this new field group. And let's take it for a spin by going into Professors, and let's try to edit Dr. Barks a Lot. Perfect, so here we see the new field, Page Banner Subtitle, and Page Banner Background Image. Now, really quick, before I type in a subtitle for Dr. Barks a Lot and also upload a banner image, I first want to add a new image size that is well suited for this really wide but not very tall background area. So right now, I want us to jump into our text editor and open up functions.php in our theme folder. And remember in our previous lesson when we registered these image sizes of Professor Landscape and Professor Portrait, well, right below that, let's just add on another new image size. And let's give this size a nickname of Page Banner. And how wide should it be? Let's say 1500. And how tall should it be? Let's say 350. And let's say true that it should indeed be cropped to match this size perfectly. Let's add a semicolon at the end there and then hit save. Okay, now with this new image size in place, let's go ahead and fill out the new custom fields for Dr. Barks-a-Lot. So for the subtitle text, I will say the leading voice on barking and biology. And for the background image, just click Add Image. And I'm going to upload a new file. You can find this image in the related resources for this lesson. I'm just going to upload a picture of a field. Maybe the dog likes to play catch or fetch in the field. Okay, let's click Select Image down in the bottom right. Okay, let's go ahead and save or update this post. And now the next logical step is to find out how to actually use those custom field values here on the front end. Now at the end of the day, we are going to have to update basically every template file we've created so far, because every template is using a page banner, right? Our blog posts, our pages, events, professors, programs. But for now, just to get started, let's work on the single professor template as our starting place. And then once we have things working, we can stop and take the time to learn how to remove some of the duplication in our code base, right? We can learn how to create a reusable function that generates the page banner area. But for right now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Long story short, let's just jump into our single professor template file and work on pulling in the dynamic subtitle and background image. So in the text editor, let's open up singleprofessor.php. And let's begin with the subtitle. So we can delete this static placeholder, don't forget me text, and instead drop into PHP and run the function named theField. And then for the argument, we just type in the custom field name, which was page_banner_subtitle. Let's go ahead and save that. Perfect. The leading voice on barking and biology. Next up, let's work on the background image. So on this div that has a class of page banner BG image, we see an inline background image style, but most importantly, we have this URL. And you'll notice that we are already using PHP to echo the URL that points towards the generic ocean fallback background image. So we can keep this PHP block, but let's go ahead and delete this echo get theme file ocean code. So I'm just going to delete from the beginning of the word echo to the end of the parentheses right after ocean JPEG. Okay, so now I've got an empty opening and closing PHP area. And the first thing I want to do is create a variable. We could name it whatever we want. Let's call it page banner image. And let's set it to equal the results of get field. And then we just type in the field name. So remember the custom field was page banner background image. Let's be sure to include a semicolon right after that. Okay, now so far all we've done is create a variable with this name, but we haven't actually output or echoed anything onto the page. So now right after this semicolon that we just wrote, let's echo out, and let's begin by looking inside that variable we just created, page banner image. And this variable is actually an array. That's what the Advanced Custom Fields plugin is going to return here for us. So to look inside an array, right after it, we can open up a pair of square brackets. And then inside those square brackets, we can say quotes, URL. And this is going to give us the path or URL to the image. Cool, so let's go ahead and save that. And there we see the new image. Now it's not cropped perfectly, and we will learn more about that in just a moment. But first I want to address a common concern you might have. Because you might be thinking to yourself, Brad, how in the world am I supposed to have known that this variable is an array? And how am I supposed to know that it contains a property named URL? Right, because in the real world, there isn't going to be someone whispering in your ear all the answers like this. So here's what I have to say about that. Aside from checking out the official documentation on the Advanced Custom Fields website, what I like to do is just print or dump out information about the variable onto the screen. So for example, down here where we are outputting plain text like the title, maybe right in that area we could drop into PHP. And if you were curious what lived inside this variable, if you were curious what this function of getField returns, down here you could just say print r. Remember we learned about this function several lessons ago. And then just pass it whatever you want to learn more about. So in this case, it would be our variable name, page banner image. You don't need any quotes around it because we're not passing a string of text. We're just passing the actual variable itself. But as soon as I save that, it's a bit difficult to read, but you can see that gives us everything we need to know about that variable. So at the very beginning here, we can see that it's an array, and then we can see all the properties and data that lives inside it. So for example, here's that URL property that we used that returns a URL, obviously, to the JPEG. Okay, so that's just a quick tip I want you to be aware of if you're ever wondering how you're supposed to figure this stuff out on your own in the future. Let's go ahead and delete that. We don't need that debugging info. And let's get back to the topic of cropping, because as we can see, I don't think this is the ideal part of the image that we want to be showing. So when we echoed out the property of URL that lives inside this variable, that's going to give us the original huge 5,000 pixel wide JPEG. If instead we want to use one of our custom sizes, our custom aspect ratios, right, over in functions.php, if we want to use this page banner image size that's 1500 by 350, all we need to do is, instead of looking inside the URL property, let's look inside a sizes property, and then inside of that, just add on another pair of square brackets. Just type in the name of the image size you want. So page banner. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. And we can see that that's already much, much better. Again, by default, WordPress is going to crop towards the very center of the photo. But if we wanted more fine-grained control, maybe if we wanted to crop towards the bottom of that photo, all we would need to do is go back into editing Dr. Barks-a-Lot. And for that custom image field, just hover over it and then click the little pencil icon to edit the image. And because we installed that manual crop plugin, we can just click this crop image option right here. And to draw your attention to these tabs up top, we don't need to edit the thumbnail version of the image. We want to edit the page banner version of the image. So click on that, and then you can see it already constrains us to the perfect aspect ratio. And then you can just drag it wherever you want. So maybe the dog likes to play catch right on the grass here. So scroll down, click crop it. The image was successfully cropped. So as soon as we go back here and refresh, perfect. So that takes care of the background image. Now before we move along any further and worry about what happens if a professor doesn't have an image or doesn't have a custom subtitle, right? Before we set up the default fallback values, I first want to ask us a hypothetical question. What if we wanted to add a custom page banner image to our About Us page or to one of our blog posts? Well, at the moment, that means we would have to duplicate this code here into page.php and single.php. Now, in the programming world, duplicate code is a touchy subject. Obviously, too much duplicate code is an issue because then if you ever wanted to make a change to this HTML, you would have to edit 10 PHP files. But on the other side of the spectrum, we don't always want to try to eliminate all duplicate code the millisecond it pops up, because that often results in really inflexible, one-size-fits-all functions that are just awkward to work with. So in our very next lesson, we are going to try to find the happy middle ground between those two extremes. We will create a recyclable page banner function, and I don't want you to do what I'm about to do right now. This is just for a quick example. But once we're done with our function, we can just say page banner, and then maybe pass it an array of options, and say title should be hello. Subtitle should be hey. Background image should be whatever it should be. Right? So that's a lot cleaner. We don't mind duplicating this in each of our template files, and then the real meat and potato guts of the function, the brains of the function, will live in our functions.php file. It should be a really fun, perhaps even a breakthrough moment lesson, Let's keep things rolling, and I will see you in the next lesson.